Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to Let's Talk Qatar. We want to deal with the actual living in Qatar. Getting the residency and the visa is actual Hijrah, an option. We want you to stick around to the end because we'll give a rating. My son will give his point of view, I'll give mine. Inshallah, and we'll give a rating between 1 and 10 of what we think about Qatar.
So the tourist visa is upon arrival. They don't have the scan, like we recently went to Malaysia. You just scan your passport. So in Qatar, you talk to the officer. They might ask you a few questions, where you're staying, how long you're staying. So you get 3 months, which is about 90 days, for the price of $20. You also have the e-visa option, which is basically the same thing. You get 90 days. But you apply for it online.
Just to add to that, like for people who want to stay 90 days at a time, that's possible. But I'm sure that over time, that would be something that's cumbersome.
Oh, wait, I forgot to mention that the 90 days is not multi-entry.
Right. That's a one-time.
Yeah, I made a mistake, I think, on the first video. But that's a one-time payment for consistent 90 days.
90 days. If you leave before the 90 days, then you have to get it again. You have to come in again. And for those of you who are not familiar with how that works, there are countries that you can go to, like Saudi Arabia now. They'll give you a year. It doesn't mean that you leave and now you have to buy a year again. No, you can come in and out within that year in 90-day intervals. The same with Tanzania. When you buy the visa, you go in, they give you 90 days. If you come in 60 days later, then you can still enter with the same visa on that one payment. Qatar, no.
So that's
once you leave, that's it. Yeah, those are called multi-entry, and Qatar is a single entry. So that's a tourist visa. When you come on a tourist visa, that's like fact-finding mission. That's like visiting the country. That's like seeing what the country has to offer. And then some people, they use that tourist visa to stay over time. But in that case, you need to have good enough resources to afford the life in Qatar, because it's going to be much more expensive than if you had a residency visa, because you'll probably be living out of hotels or living out of Airbnbs. It'll be a little more expensive. I'm sure you can find ways around it. And I'm sure there are people that actually, we know somebody that does that, but without mentioning names, we know.
Right.
So that it happens, but it's not ideal. So let's move to the next visa. Basically, in Qatar, you're going to have a work visa. If you want the residency permit, you're going to have a work visa. And there are two ways to get it, but let's just talk about the first way, which is obviously employment. Right. So to work in Qatar, you will be able to get your residency permit, which is a work visa. That's what we'll call it, but it's technically residency permit. And mainly the way you get it, especially if you're coming from an English-speaking country, is that you teach English or you become a teacher, some type of teacher. Or you can be a professional, like an IT professional, engineer, in medicine, a medical doctor, maybe a nurse. But generally, you're not going to be able to get a visa working at the restaurant. That's not where you're going to fit in, because there's too much competition as security guards and service people working in the stores and that type of stuff. You're probably not going to be able to do that. Qatar, as we discussed before, is primarily foreigners in 90% of the jobs. So you're competing with those people. You're competing with people coming from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Philippines. That competition is really stiff. So you would have to bring something to the market that's on a higher level than most of the folks from other countries. So that's an option, the work visa. And some will argue that, okay, what happens when they decide to let you go, or you can't, you don't fit in with their work culture or what have you, and you might last a year or 2 years or something like that, and then at that point, it's time to go somewhere else. But the thing I would say about that is that we met brothers that have been there for 20 years, 18 years. So, and they all said that there are jobs. There are jobs available. So it's not impossible to stay there just working. But you should be looking for other ways. Like you could start off working, but you should be investigating other ways, like residency through investment, buying properties and things like that. You should be kind of looking on a high level.
Thinking of making Hijrah, but not sure where to start? Wondering which Muslim country aligns best with your values, your family, your future? Well, look no further. At Make Hijrah, we're here to guide you every step of the way, helping you avoid the frustration, the overwhelming research, and the trial and error that can come with planning a move alone. Our advisors have spent over 20 plus years living in the Muslim world with experience across more than 11 countries. With a 1-hour consultation, you'll receive expert insights tailored to your unique needs. We'll help you to craft a clear Hijrah strategy so you can avoid unnecessary costs and countless hours of solo research. Your journey doesn't have to be overwhelming. Let's make your dream a reality together.
So the business is not a business visa, but once you establish a business, you can issue yourself a visa.
Right.
And of course, for your dependents and so on. So you establish the business, and of course, there's fees and so on. And then you issue yourself a visa through the business you establish.
To add to that, like you can, some people are not aware of the newer laws regarding opening businesses there. Before, you needed a sponsor, or you needed a Qatari partner, I should say, not a sponsor. You need a Qatari partner in order to open a business. That's still available, but now you can open 100% foreign-owned company.
Right.
So, and you can do it through agencies there that make it really, really easy to go about doing it. You're going to need some capital. It's not that much capital. It doesn't exceed about $6,000 or something like that. But then also a strategy could be that you and some of your friends or some people from your community that want to move, that you all come together and put in for that amount. And it's around that. Could be up to 10 max. But think about it. If you split that between 4 or 5 people, then it becomes 2,000 each. Right. And then that'll get you the business. But then there's also other things related to that. It's not just to pay that money, but you have to have a office. You have to have.
Right, there's fees that go into it, right?
And speaking on that, we did go and check out some office space. So with the office, just to give you an idea, these workspaces, they have like just a desk that you can rent, and that would qualify as an office space. And then they also have actual office spaces that are pretty small, but this is where you keep the cost down. So if you're trying to use a business in order to get residency there, then you do have these options where you can just pay the minimum amount for your office space. Right. And just to get up and running and get started. But then, of course, that would require that you have capital, that you have money so you can live, which is kind of a downside because we didn't mention it before. If you have a work visa, then generally that comes with accommodation. So that would cut down on the amount you would spend for living. That's the biggest expense. Mm-hmm. So if you become employed there and they pay for that, then you could have a decent life. It's not, it shouldn't be hard. And plus, another thing, the salaries are decent, and you could possibly afford your life, depending on what you're bringing to the table, like as a professional. Yeah, business, you can open business, but that doesn't mean visa.
Yeah, the business, you have to issue yourself
you have to make yourself a contract that you work in.
Right.
And then something else about that I found interesting is that in Qatar, according to the brother showed me, they have an app, and you can pretty much take care of everything on the app. Mm-hmm. Like you can just go on the app, add your wife, add your daughters or your sons.
Yeah, you just issue it.
So, which brings us around to another point, which is the family residency visa. So that comes from you working, and then you sponsoring your dependents, right? Mm-hmm. So who comes under that is the wife, It's the sons under 18, because that's another point.
That's an important point, actually.
Because they expect a man to be a man. So,
yeah, but that's you find that with most countries that we've been to,
right?
That once they hit 18,
you on your own.
For a man, usually it's for a man. Some countries is a female as well. But as soon as you hit 18, they expect you to either go to college.
Right.
You have to do something, but you can't just be sitting on a free visa.
Right.
They're not letting that slide.
Right. So sons under 18, you can sponsor. Above 18, you got to figure it out. Like put them in school, possibly make them work with you, work on your in your business. That's a possibility. But daughters are different. Like they don't, like the daughter has to be unmarried though.
Yeah.
She has to be unmarried and she can stay with you.
That's fair though. It makes sense.
Which is part of the culture. That's part of Islamic culture to begin with. Like your daughter is under your responsibility. It's not like the States. A lot of us were, I don't even know if it's in the UK as well, but definitely in the States, like once your daughter hit an age, she got to bounce. She got to go. Anyway, so that brings us back to like in line with Islamic culture. If you get a visa there, you have a daughter, she's unmarried, she can stay with you under that visa. You have to get your documents attested or apostilled. And you can, if you're in the States, you can look into that. Other countries, I'm not sure how it's done, but make sure that you get your documents officiated, because that's part of the process to make sure that the marriage is actually a real marriage. The children are actually your children. So you need those documentations, and you need to
proof that they.
You need the proof like that, because anybody can. If that's the case, anybody can come and say, "This is my son" or "This is my daughter," and it's not, But any documentations, any legal documents proving that this person is under your care or their dependents, and then of course, if you're married, you need to get your marriage certificates and everything apostilled or officiated. And there's ways to do that. You can do it in the States. You can get a some countries accept affidavits from the embassy. It's just the embassy saying, because they're not going to say it's real or not. So you're actually saying it's real, and then you making a legal document saying that you're saying it's real. Also, you have to get certain medical tests, and you have to get fingerprinted. Just for the visa itself, it costs $200 to process it, 200 rial, which equals to $55. Then you have the medical tests. The medical tests cost 100 rial, which equals to $28. And then finally, you have the actual resident permit, and that costs 500 rial, which equals out to 140. So you would just have to add all that up depending on how many people you have in your family. And that would give you 1 year residency, and then you renew that every year.
Do you have longer, like 2 year, 3 year? Is that an option?
I've heard, I didn't mention it here, but I've heard that it can be longer. The problem is I didn't find it. Like I didn't find no documentation. That's why I didn't mention it. But I did hear that you can. Here at Make Hijrah, our goal is to bring you the latest information on what's going on in the Muslim world, ensuring that you're able to make informed decisions on how and where to make Hijrah. But we can't do this without your support. If you value this cause, go to fund.makehijrah.com to support our productions. Your contribution allows us to travel throughout the Muslim world to give you a clear picture of what your options actually are. Whether it's a one-time or continuous donation, every bit helps us to continue producing content for you. Jazakallahu khairan for your support. Now back to the video.
So the student visas, they're pretty straightforward. I would say you have to, of course, look into the university you want to go to. And we're talking about universities here. You look into it, you have to know the requirements of that university. Each one might be slightly different. But basically you have to do your research and, of course, correspond with the university that you're interested in enrolling in, and then then you start your visa process that way. But it's through the university.
And that makes sense.
Right.
Because any other place, even if you in your own home country, you got to go to the university and apply.
Right.
So
they might have their requirements, like you have to know this, or you have to.
Right. So yeah, that's the natural process. If you want to try to get a student visa, you should research the universities that you want to go to. And it shouldn't be like, for some of us, it might be like a visa thing.
Yeah.
But you just have to know that you have to research the university you want to go to and then apply, and then you'll get the student visa like that, inshallah. So some people might ask what a residency permit actually is. It's just a legal document. It's just showing that you're legally able to live in this place. Right. So in the case of Qatar, you're going to get a card, like an ID card, that shows that you have the legal right to be in the country. And as we mentioned, to apply for the residency permits and everything, it all depends on those topics we mentioned earlier. Basically, it's every year. Some say it's every 2 years, every 5 years. I'm not absolutely sure that that's an option, but we did hear brothers say that. Out of the countries that we visited, Qatar is definitely at the top. There are some drawbacks, but it's surprisingly easy to actually be a resident in Qatar. Right. Like, I see that as one of the easiest places to get residency, but it's very expensive.
But in a case where somebody doesn't have a lot of children, I wouldn't say it's super expensive like that. You know what I mean? Like if you have, I just was talking to some friends and whatnot, and they paying like, $1,500. They paying $2,000. They're paying $3,000 for something that's like okay. You know what I mean?
Where at?
And this is in the States. I'm talking about.
In the States, right?
So, of course, comparing it to the States, you can't really complain. And the reason why I compare it to the States because most of the brothers or our viewers, our audience, want to make Hijrah, right? So the money shouldn't really be stopping you that much, especially if at the end of the day it's cheaper than your
cheaper
current
than what you're already doing.
Yeah, it's cheaper. Yeah. So that's one of my main reasons. And the second is rent. Like if you're working there, usually they pay or they cover your rent. Right. And if they don't cover it, they said they do, of course, try to at least pay half of it or majority of it.
Right.
But in most cases, they do cover it.
Right.
So that's if you want to work there. You know what I mean?
I think most of the people have to work. If you're independently wealthy, then what we're saying doesn't even matter, to be honest.
Right, but some people just don't know. They can't choose. They don't know how to, of course, go through the process of actually residing in a country long term.
Right.
As opposed to always getting kicked out and wasting their money checking this country out. A lot of brothers then checked out 5 countries and then wasted $30K, $40K up in this joint. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Mm-hmm. So if you have a way, then you could go ahead and get set up a business with, like you mentioned. Yeah. It might be $6K.
Yeah.
USD.
$6 to $10K.
Dollars. Something like that. But if you wasted that looking around, jumping around from country to country, at the end of the day, I would say Qatar for me, rating it, I would give it like an 8 or 9. And that's for a lot of reasons. The main reason being the ease. Like you said, the ease of residing in the country long term. And then, of course, the benefits you get. Right. And one of the main benefits is the children of born there and residing there for over 10 years. Right. You can, of course, get permanent residency. And that's big for a lot of us that want to actually make Hijrah. You know what I mean? You're right. That's very important. Yeah. And then, of course, you have the whole, the comfort of the country, you know what I mean? And the ease of immigration, renewing. Right. That's for a lot of people, that's a headache in most countries. But in this case, you're dealing with an app. Right. You know what I mean? You renew through the app or you issue, and a lot of things are done through the app. Right. So a lot of governmental procedures or problems or tasks is done through the app. Yeah. Alhamdulillah, which is great. So it makes that part of life very stress-free. Yeah, that's true. Right. As opposed to many other countries. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, a lot of people are not familiar with dealing with the renewal visa process and immigration and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the headache of that. Like, we know it in multiple different countries. Like, it's always something. Yeah, right. Language barrier is always something.
Yeah, right.
It's difficult being ran around, you know what I mean? But if you're dealing with an app that's in English, I mean, right.
Yeah,
it's come on, that type of comfort people pray for. Especially if you're in a country where you feel that your children, there's more safety. Right. Of course, the safety in Qatar is a no-brainer there. Right. Yeah. But there's many different pros to it. The cons, of course, would just be probably the weather, maybe some of the natural produce there. Right. You know what I mean?
I would rate it about 8. I rated about an 8, and the reason I rated an 8 is because it does have the potential to be a place that you can stay long term. And there are other visa options that we didn't really talk about, like resident buying an apartment or things like that. It's expensive, but it allows you to be a resident there long term. So, when it comes to Hijrah, it's on a high level that you can possibly stay, raise your family, and you have options. They're not just trying to kick you out like that. So, but you have to be smart. You have to be strategic on how you plan to stay there. Safety, of course, is completely safe. Education is high. Like if you wanted to educate your children or let them go to university and everything like that, they have high-level education, high-level medical care. It seemed like you could make
a decent amount of money there too.
That's another thing.
Yeah, they have minimum wages and all of it.
Yeah, you can work and you can hustle as well. There's been brothers there that open up shops. There's not only just open up shops, like if you're a teacher, you can tutor, you make good money. It's not like you making like, bare bones, struggling type money. Like if you really want to hustle, you can. So even though the cost of living is a bit higher, you can compensate that with your hustle and your drive to make money because people have money. So with that all being said, I would give it an 8 out of 10. And the only reason it's not a 10 out of 10 is because of the cost of living there.
And the weather.
And
the weather for me is an issue. Even though, like I said, we went there at a different time. But I know it's scorching hot from what people are saying. It's scorching hot.
There's no doubt about that. It's hot.
That's for me. I can't do it.
But we didn't mention the Islamic part. They have Islamic opportunities there, like Arabic and Quran. All that's there. By the way, that I guess we didn't mention it because it kind of goes without saying. But they do have those options, and they have funded options. Yeah. Where dawah and all that stuff, they have that. Like there's brothers that give durus in English there. There are brothers that give khutbas. Yeah. Like you have a khatib that's a British guy or American guy.
We knew a
we know a brother in particular, and he gives lessons and everything, and he's in that particular mosque. So you have that.
It's a big message.
And if people are interested in that translation and that type of stuff, they have the Okaf. They have a website called Islam Web. They have stuff there that a person that wants to go down that path, they can go down that path and be paid. So anyway, that's that with Qatar. Stay tuned for you got something else you want to add?
Just one little thing. Another thing that I did notice is the modesty there in terms, even when it comes to the vehicles. Now that's very important because Qatar is a very, very wealthy country, right? And it's small, so the wealth is just there, right? Right. You don't find pink or gold-plated Rolls Royce riding down. You don't have those fancy cars that, of course, people flaunt their wealth, right? Right. But I noticed that in Qatar, it was not like that at all. Like, a lot of the Qataris, they had their big old, they like their big Toyota, they like them bigger rides because, they go into the desert and whatnot. Right. But on that level, you don't notice it like that. You just don't see it.
Or we didn't see it. But if it was something, you saw UAE, right?
You see it. Everybody knows.
Well, yeah, I'm saying
they make sure that you know. Because
I'm sure you got some dudes that with some Porsches or Lamborghinis or something like that in Qatar, but I'm sure in UAE I don't know. No, I saw some stuff in UAE.
I saw it's not when it comes to UAE. Like even in Oman, you notice in Oman it was very conservative. Like you didn't see a lot of big old crazy looking, and riding down obnoxious with it, just blasting stuff. But in UAE, or at least in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and other places, even on highways, they just zooming past, Right. And we saw that in Kuwait. In Kuwait, it was like that, just riding around and just hitting that engine, hitting the gas. You know what I mean? Right. But alhamdulillah, in Qatar, I didn't see that.